The moment.
One must admire the sheer, unadulterated audacity of the occasion. On the 28th of June, 2026, in a damp Edinburgh noon, the heavens themselves seemed to arrange a theatrical tableau as grotesque as anything Sheridan could devise. The event chart for the opening of the Scottish Parliament's 7th session presents a sky thick with tension, the sort of atmospheric pressure one usually associates with a coming thunderstorm or a looming headache. The sun sits in Cancer, the sign of home, heritage, and the monarch's own sentimental attachment to the soil, but it finds itself in a sharp square to the moon in Sagittarius. This is the celestial signature of a family dinner where no one is speaking, yet the passive aggression is palpable. The sun represents the king's illuminated presence, but the moon, that volatile indicator of the public mood and the collective psyche, is in far-seeing, blunt-talking Sagittarius, howling at the authority from the back of the room. The true dynamism, however, lies in the late degree placements. Mars, the planet of action and conflict, lingers at the very last breath of Taurus, the anaretic degree, a position of no return, forming a tight, explosive sextile to Jupiter, also stationary at the end of Cancer. This is a Hail Mary aspect. Mars, in its detriment in Taurus, suggests a slow-burning, stubborn energy that has finally reached a boiling point, while Jupiter in Cancer expands the emotional territory. When the SNP's presiding officer decided to program As Others See Us, a dramatic diatribe against the supposed racism of the British Empire, they were not merely booking entertainment, they were pulling the pin on a grenade that Mars had been holding onto for dear life. The cyclic index sits at a hefty 816.7, a figure that screams disruption rather than business as usual. We are not looking at a procedural hiccup. We are looking at a calculated symbolic slap delivered with the utmost parliamentary politeness.
What it touches. When we turn our gaze to the Scottish Parliament's own birth chart from that hopeful May Day in 1999, the current astrological weather is doing a delightful job of dismantling its original architecture. Transiting Pluto is conjunct the Parliament's natal Neptune. In mundane terms, this is a brutal exposure of the ideal. The Parliament was founded on a misty, aspirational Neptune, the dream of a distinct Scottish voice. Pluto, lord of the underworld, grinds dreams into dust to reveal the raw power dynamics underneath. The play As Others See Us is precisely this, a Plutonian ripping away at the velvet curtain to show the rusty machinery of empire underneath. The veneer of constructive political engagement dissolves, revealing the raw antipodal force underneath. Furthermore, transiting Venus is conjoined with the Parliament's north node of destiny. One might think Venus implies a tea party, but here, locked in the grip of Pluto's death stare, it indicates a fated social confrontation. The Parliament is destined to redefine its relationship values, but not in a way that involves holding hands. The fact that transiting Neptune is squaring that same natal Venus suggests that whatever affection or commonwealth bond once existed is currently dissolving in a fog of disappointment and ideological confusion. For His Majesty, the picture is, if anything, more grim. The transits to his chart show Saturn in direct opposition to his natal Neptune, while Pluto squares his own north node. If one were writing a tragedy, one could scarcely ask for a better illustration of a beleaguered figurehead confronting the impossibility of his station. Saturn opposes Neptune, reality versus illusion. The king is trying to project an image of unified stability, but the hard edges of political reality are crashing in, demanding he acknowledge the fracturing of his kingdom. The synastry between the Parliament and the king is equally telling. The Scottish Parliament's mood, the mood of its people, is quincunx Charles's Mercury. In plain English, they simply do not speak the same language. The king offers a speech of unity and continuity. The Parliament answers with a play about imperial racism. It is the classic reply to the wrong question dynamic that often ends in a cold supper and a stern letter to the lawyers. More alarming is the Parliament's Uranus rebellion, opposing Charles's Pluto, established power. This is not a request for better funding. This is an electrical current seeking to ground out the very source of the Crown's authority in that chamber. The 1801 United Kingdom chart, meanwhile, is suffering under a Saturn conjunction to its own node. The Union is not just enduring a bad hair day. It is undergoing a chronic structural examination of its very longevity. The foundations are being weighed and found wanting. How it rolls forward. The coming months will not be a quiet period of reflection, I fear. As we move past this awkward June afternoon, the sky is gearing up for the total solar eclipse in Leo on August 12, 2026. Eclipses are the universe's way of editing the script. They remove what is no longer tenable. In Leo, the sign of the king, this suggests a blinding spotlight on Charles's role that will be impossible to dodge. The anti-British sentiment is not a flash in the pan. It is the opening salvo of a much louder cultural war. We also see a Saturn-Pluto sextile developing throughout the summer, followed by a Jupiter-Saturn trine in late August. Heavy outer planet configurations like this usually signify the hardening of positions. It is the cement setting on a new wall. Unfortunately, it appears to be a wall separating Downing Street from Edinburgh. The rising cyclic index points toward dispersal. Things do not stay contained, they scatter. The synastry suggests that while Charles will attempt to maintain his dignity, that stiff upper lip is practically his natal right. The Scottish Parliament's urge to differentiate, to sever the emotional cord represented by Venus, is accelerating. The awkward pageant of June 28th is not a bump in the road, it is the road breaking open. Watch for a hardening of rhetoric from the Unionists in the aftermath, a pushback that tries to use the indignity of the event as a rallying cry, even as the astrological undertow drags the conversation toward inevitable constitutional rupture. Summary. This royal humiliation is not an isolated diplomatic blunder, but a fated collision between a dissolving imperial fantasy and a restless national appetite for severance. We begin with theatrical brinkmanship, where Mars, at the anaretic degree of Taurus sextiling Jupiter in Cancer, drove the presiding officer's provocative choice of play, signaling a now or never explosiveness in cultural gestures. Then there is the crown's reality check as Saturn opposing Charles's natal Neptune forces a confrontation between the king's unifying image and the fractured reality of his constituent nations. Consider the end of the illusion, where Pluto's conjunction to the Scottish Parliament's Neptune exposes the failure of the devolution settlement dream, replacing polite cooperation with raw ideological conflict. Look toward the Leo eclipse target, for the August 2026 solar eclipse in Leo threatens to publicly unmask or diminish the king's authority in the wake of the June spectacle. And finally, we see structural calcification. The upcoming Saturn-Pluto sextile and Jupiter-Saturn trine suggest that the political reaction to this event will be permanent and rigid, not a temporary spat. One almost wishes one could offer the king a brandy and a comfortable chair, for the stars suggest the theater is only just warming up, and the script is far from finished. Recent history and where this is heading. One does have to admire the chutzpah of staging a national divorce while the head of the household is still in the room. But surely this charming debacle in Edinburgh is merely a localized symptom of the Saturn conjunct Neptune at 0 degrees Aries backdrop, a placement that specializes in dissolving the difference between reality and exhausted propaganda. The symbolism suggests that the United Kingdom is currently operating on the fumes of a polite hallucination rather than structural integrity. As this slow-moving fog thickens, the upcoming calendar offers little in the way of sunshine. When Saturn and Neptune formally conjoin in February 2026, expect the dissolving reality to harden into a permanent state of existential confusion for the establishment. By the time Saturn squares Pluto in 2028, the unmasking won't just be theatrical. It will likely be a ruthless dismantling of the machinery of power. It is all connected, unfortunately. Different headlines, same cold astrological wind whistling through the cracks in the foundation. Before you go, my dear friend, if you find yourself staring at the newsreel and wondering how such a diplomatic train wreck was written in the stars, allow me to offer a little clarity, to understand the precise mechanics of this royal friction, and perhaps to illuminate the tensions in your own life. The sinister reading offers the clearest view of two worlds colliding with mathematical inevitability. And if the fog of national disillusionment feels a bit too thick, a tarot-full reading can slice through the noise. I might particularly suggest the Golden Dawn situation analysis spread for this, as it excels at dissecting the hidden causes and foundations of a crisis. Both are available at Occultic whenever you are ready to step behind the curtain. My dear Seeker, this monthly Celtic Cross, 15 cards drawn from the Smith-Waite Standard deck, covers Monday the 1st of June through Tuesday the 30th of June 2026, a month wherein the theatrical indignities suffered by His Majesty in Edinburgh are writ large across both the heavens and the pasteboard. As I set out in my own reading of the matter, the heavens are in no mood for polite fiction. Neither, I fear, are these cards. Present situation, Queen of Wands. The Queen of Wands, that fiery matriarch of Aries, Martian spring, dominates the here and now, echoing Mars's energetic tantrum in Taurus that drove the presiding officer to program a dramatic diatribe. She is magnetic, heated, and utterly unamused. Beside the Six of Wands, her blaze only sharpens the performative sting of this constitutional pantomime. Immediate challenge, Six of Wands. Jupiter in Leo offers laurels and bombast, and the Six of Wands stands as the gilded herald of that explosive Mars-Jupiter sextile from the event chart, triumphalism masking a hollow, curious message. The Queen of Wands' heat meets its match here, ensuring the King's discomfort is delivered with maximum pomp and a rather noticeable absence of tact. Foundation/distant past. Eight of Pentacles. The Eight of Pentacles rises from Sun in Virgo, speaking of craftsmen polishing the stone of devolution since 1999. The Scottish Parliament's natal Neptune dreamed of a polished voice, but Pluto has since ground that stone to revealing dust. The Two of Swords across the way shows the blinkered result, years of labor producing only a more exquisite impasse. Recent past, Nine of Wands. The Nine of Wands appears through Moon in Sagittarius, the wounded sentinel, bruised yet defiant, rather like the King's natal Neptune under Saturn's exact opposition, bracing for the next blow. This is the recent memory of snubs and constitutional skirmishes. The Eight of Pentacles behind him proves the palisade was always more theatrical than structural. Best outcome/potential, the Sun. The Sun itself, that Cancerian luminary squaring the Sagittarian moon in the event sky, offers a best-case scenario of blinding, uncomfortable clarity, yet childlike innocence atop a white horse scarcely suits a monarch whose Neptunian image is being disassembled by Saturn. The Page of Swords nearby warns that such light arrives chiefly through unwelcome exposure. Immediate future, Page of Swords. The Page of Swords, Earth of Air in Saturn-ruled Aquarius, is a lithe, spying page dashing across rugged terrain. He embodies the swift, indiscreet scrutiny that follows the play's opening and foreshadows the Leo eclipse yet to come. The sun above him suggests his prying will expose precisely what the crown hoped to keep walled within the garden. Your attitude/self, Knight of Wands. Well, the Knight of Wands comes as fire of fire, Sagittarian Jupiter's restless cavalry. You arrive charging rather too precipitately toward the quarrel. You embody the moon in Sagittarius, far-seeing, blunt, itching to bolt from the Edinburgh table. Across from the Two of Swords, your mailed enthusiasm collides with the hoodwinked stalemate of those who prefer balanced blades to plain truths.
External influences, Two of Swords. The Two of Swords sits in Moon in Libra, hoodwinked, two swords balanced upon her shoulders. An exact portrait of the Parliament's Venus conjunct North Node, fated to redefine relationship values while Pluto leers. This is the external pressure of enforced brittle politeness. The Knight of Wands chafes against her equipoise, for she represents the blind deadlock the king must endure.
Hopes and fears, the Emperor. The Emperor rises as Mars-ruled Aries, the virile seat of stability and willful projection. He is both the king's desperate hope and his quiet dread, though royalty seldom admits its trembling. Saturn opposing his natal Neptune shatters the Emperor's illusion of command, while Pluto squares his north node. Besides strength, we see authority attempting to master the beast by sheer force of crown and scepter. Monthly outcome, strength. Strength, Leo's solar virtue, closes the jaws of the lion with a chain of flowers. How terribly apt for a monarch facing the August Leo eclipse. It is not cruelty, but enforced endurance. The beast is subdued, not tamed. The Emperor's rigid throne melts into this gentler, more humiliating spectacle of patience under public siege. Week 1, Ten of Wands. The Ten of Wands bears down through Saturn in Sagittarius, oppression under the guise of honor, much like the Union Saturn node conjunction weighing upon its 1801 bones. The rods burden the carrier until his back aches. This first week offers no respite from parliamentary fallout. The Three of Cups that follows threatens to toast the crisis as though it were a victory. Week 2, Three of Cups. The Three of Cups arrives in Mercury and Cancer's celebratory abundance. The maidens raise cups to unexpected advancement, or at least a Pyrrhic merriment. The Scottish cohort may toast their cheeky provocation, but it is hollow healing. After the Ten of Wands oppression, this solace rings rather like laughing at a funeral where the coffin is still decidedly British oak. Week 3, Death.
Death rides as Scorpio's Plutonian horseman, that apocalyptic visitor bearing the mystic rose, and he is not interested in half measures. This week brings the necessary end of an illusion, likely the final expiry of the devolution dream I marked with Pluto grinding the Parliament's natal Neptune. The devil that follows ensures the rubble is chained firmly to the earth.
Week 4, the Devil. The Devil presides as Capricorn's Saturn-ruled goat over the altar of fatality, chains included. This is the Saturn-Neptune conjunction at 0 degrees, Aries hardening into literal bondage, the hallucination of union calcifying into a material prison. After death's sweeping, the old kingdom's propaganda is revealed a sheer predestined shackle, rather uncomfortable, I should think, for those still wearing the crown. Week 5, Eight of Swords. The Eight of Swords scatters through Jupiter in Gemini, interference and calumny multiplying around the hoodwinked woman. She is blinded not by fate, but by rumor multiplied. It mirrors the Jupiter-Saturn trine late in August, cementing separatist rhetoric into a rigid new wall. The devil's chains precede her. She merely discovers she has been bound by the very stories told to keep the realm intact. Summary. Taken together, the spread is a singular, rather merciless diagnosis. June is not a month for comfortable fictions, but for watching the machinery of state and crown stripped, scolded, and finally soldered into a new, far colder shape. You would do well, my seeker, to observe this theater with the detachment of a physician noting symptoms, neither wincing nor applauding, merely recording the inevitable fever before it breaks. Walk in wisdom until the pasteboard speaks again.